So you've just finished the axe and you don't really know what to do. You come up to this guy and he tells you that you should take this map and then put it into your map device. So you go down here and you put it into your map device, you finish your first map, and then what? Well, here I am trying to explain this to you. This is the Atlas of Worlds in Path of Exile. We all start off with our first map. Every league start is the same. Now, certain things that I want to talk to you about in the beginning. Remember, this isn't a race. Choose your own tempo. Have fun doing it. It's really important. So first things first, if you want to progress, you need to remember and treat your atlas almost like your own character. Since here, every single time you complete a bonus objective of a map, where blue is where in white tier maps you need to finish the map in a magic version or higher. In yellow you need to kill a rare version or higher, and in red maps it needs to be a corrupted rare version of the map. This is how you get the bonus objective, which allows you to do your Atlas skill tree. Now the more points you have in your normal character, the stronger it is, right? So the same thing applies to this skill tree. The more points you have for your skill tree, the stronger and the better the loot you will be dropping. So that makes sense. It's quite logical and it applies on both ways. So how do we get those skill points? Well, by completing maps. So what's the best way to complete maps? Try to drop as many as you can. And by doing that, slowly you will start gaining more and more points, and early on, I would highly recommend to find a map sustain atlas tree. So respecking the atlas tree isn't that difficult, since it's quite easy to just literally go to Kirak. And then what you can do is you can also buy for 2 Orbs of Regrets an Orb of Unmaking, which allows you to respec an Atlas passive skill point, which is also really good, besides the fact of dropping them normally, and well, early league, they are quite expensive because most people also want to respec. So this is like a decent vendor recipe to do anyways. Besides that, Kirak is also a good way to buy certain maps. As you can see, they are quite cheap because they only cost Orbs of Chance or all Orbs of Alchemy, sometimes Chaos Orbs, as you can see. And it's an easy way because if we click Alt over a map, if we hover over it and click Alt, we can see that the Atlas map and bonus objective is complete for this map. This means that for completing the museum map, I have already gained an additional passive skill point, which is great. That's what we all need. Now, every single time his store refreshes after you complete something called a Kirak Atlas mission. If you go over here, you will start seeing that in all kinds of different tiers of maps, you will start dropping all kinds of different maps. And all of these different maps also have different things that you can do on them, which is going to be displayed here. Here, we will be collecting monster samples for Tain. Here, we have the Delirium Mirror. Here, it's an expedition. And here, we have Rogue Exiles. All of these can be constantly reset, thankfully, by using, for example, a scouting report, which is also dropped while mapping. If we go into our Atlas missions right now and we want to reset our map saying that, oh, well, all of these already are completed for me. All you need to do is right-click it in your inventory, and as you can see, you'll continue having all kinds of different maps that might be useful for you in order to gain those bonus objectives that I was talking to you about. Now, the more bonus objectives you have, the more points you have towards your tree. Early on, I will link a tree in the description below. If it is made by me or not by me, it will be credited. Early on, it's very important to have those chances for one monster in each of your maps to contain an additional connected map. So once we start gaining all of these points, and also we can see here that we have a chance for maps to be duplicated, and then also we have a chance for maps to be 1 tier higher. This allows us to progress even further, and there are many of these kinds of different nodes that we can take that helps us progress through the Atlas, which is really, really good, and this is what we want, especially in early game, especially in early league start. Progressing the Atlas is what's most important early on. But what is also more important is, remember that maps have different tiers, like I mentioned. As you can see here, we have white, we have yellow, and we have red. Red, of course, being the tier that is the hardest. If you do not also focus on progressing your character, your Atlas passive skill tree won't be as effective as you would like it to be, because you will start struggling in those maps, because your build won't be good enough. So remember to always also try to find a way that your build is efficient enough and, well, good enough for you to enjoy mapping and progressing through the Atlas. There's no rush doing this. If you see that you're struggling on tier 14 maps, for example, and you manage to already get one Voidstone, which I'll talk about in a second, you'll see that these maps suddenly are starting to get harder. Don't be afraid to take a step back and do a couple of map tiers lower. Doing yellow maps is absolutely fine for doing most content that you want, since most of your currency is anyways going to be through something that you're farming. Besides already having the map nodes, which are important for you to sustain maps, you'll also find something interesting for yourself, like, for example, I don't know, Breach. You can do Breach, you can do Harvest, you can do Expedition. Early League, something that's really usually useful, is probably going to be Expedition, as well as Legion, as well as Essences. Essences are always great, and there's many other things that you can do. I might do a further descriptive guide on the Atlas map tree, depending on what you want and what you need. So that can also be quite helpful for everyone else, and let me know if anybody would be interested in something like that. But now that we're in this moment, that we already know that, okay, so I need to farm maps early on, right? It makes sense, because the more maps I have, the more chances for gaining a bonus objective I have, and the more chance I get for gaining a bonus objective, well, the more skill points I can use, which means that I can drop more items from different league mechanics that I choose, which makes it more fun to play the games and also more rewarding. And that's what we want. So now that we have the general concept of what we need to do, let's go a little bit of a step further. Now, all of these maps have different tiers, and as I mentioned, we have something called Voidstones. Now, Voidstones drop from 4 different bosses. We have 2 pinnacle bosses that also are here, which are called the Searing Exarch and the Eater of Worlds. In order to gain an invitation to complete the Searing Exarch boss, we need to defeat maps, and we need to defeat 28 of these maps. We can also, as a side note, help each other out a little bit by gaining Baptized by Fire, where we have a 10% chance to award double progress towards encountering the Searing Exarch. Once we have the invitation to fight the Searing Exarch, all we need to do is kill him, and we are guaranteed to drop a Voidstone. Now, this Voidstone, what it does is enhances the tiers of the maps in our Atlas, meaning that all of these maps, even if they were white, are now tier 16 once we have all 4 Voidstones. The other 2 Voidstones that we need are from the Maven and the Elder. And I think this is the Uber Elder, if I'm not mistaken. So we have the Searing Exarch, we have the Eater of Worlds, we have Maven, and then we have the Elder. Now these are big boy bosses. Essentially, what you will need in the beginning is going to be the Eater of Worlds and the Searing Exarch. Only having 2 Voidstones already allows you access to a lot of different tier 16 maps and tier 14, which are really, really good for farming anyways. So when you have the Atlas tree, you can start having all of the points, because you do not need any Voidstone in order to have 115 skill points active, which is really cool. Unlocking also favorited maps allows you to run as many maps as you want that are your favorite. However, this is only towards farming specific league mechanics later on, because early you want to farm as many maps that are not your favorited, unless you have certain ones left over. So let's say we are in a cluster like this. We have this map, we have this map, we have this map, we have this map, and this one, but we do not have this one. So once we have all of these maps already, and we have this one, how do we gain this map? There's 2 different ways. First of all, it would be nice to actually use those favorited map slots now and just choose the Underground Sea map. Another thing is, like I mentioned before, all we need to do is go to Kirak and choose our Atlas missions and see if we have the Underground Sea map. If we do not, we can complete a mission and then go back to his store, which is now reset, and see if we have it here. Now, if we do also have, once again, let's recap, some scouting reports, we can check our Atlas missions and reroll our scouting reports. Now, another thing that we can do is see how all of these maps are connected by dotted lines? I know this might sound stupid, but actually they are, in a way, connected. Because now if we do want to drop our, where was it? Underground sea map. Where was it? There you go. If we want to drop our underground sea map, you can now see that this map is connected to 4 different maps. Well, 5, but this is a unique map. If we want to drop the underground sea map, and we usually want to drop a map that is a tier higher, we can run the Arachnid Nest map, or we can run the Racecourse map, or we can run the Geode, or we can run the Dungeon. All of these 4 maps are connected to this one, meaning that it has a chance to actually drop this map. Now, another thing that some people might not know is that if you, for example, have 3 maps that are the same, and, well, you already have the progression, and they're maps that you don't really like, you can vendor maps 3 to 1 that will give you another different map that is going to be a tier higher. So once you finish your progress, this is how your atlas is going to look like. Now, in order to gain those extra points that you might be missing saying, hey, I already finished all of these maps, how the hell do I gain the extra points? Well, we also have something called invitations. Now, Maven's invitations: the Formed, the Forgotten, the Feared, the Elder Slayers, the Hidden, and the Twisted. You have a higher chance of dropping these invitations. Instead of just buying them, you can actually run the certain maps that you have listed here. These maps are not unique maps. Some of them are, but most of them are not unique maps. But they are unique ways of boss encounters that are these smaller bosses, that we can call them that way, that we can do in order to see that invitation. After running multiple maps, you will see someone called Maven. The Maven is a woman that likes to watch you fight bosses, and that's it. That's her kink. I mean, no kink shaming here. So what we need to do is, for example, we can see the first thing, Maven's invitation, the Formed. As you can see in white, I have Maze of the Minotaur. That means that the Maven has witnessed me fighting the Minotaur already before in my hideout. So now that I know, I can choose the other maps. So for example, like the Phoenix, right? Forge of the Phoenix map, and then we can choose Maven. See, up here under Maze of the Minotaur, we have Forge of the Phoenix. Now if I do this and I select Maven to witness this, right? So this has call Maven to witness and affect this map's boss's encounter. After completing the map, you can see that I actually managed to get the Maven's invitation, the Formed, as well as their fragment. And we had Maven standing over there. I'm not sure if you've seen that. But now, if I check my map device, I can see that Forge of the Phoenix is also highlighted. After completing all 4 of these, you will see that by using the invitation, you will also gain an additional point towards your Atlas passive skill tree. You can also see on my channel where I already did 36 of each of the Twisted and the Formed maps, where you can see and encounter how it actually looks like in order to farm and do an encounter like that with all 4 of these bosses being witnessed. Now, the same thing applies to everything else, and I guess you can find these names for yourselves and let this be a little bit of a homework for you in order to find the names out from these, research what kind of maps these are, and, well, essentially, also, how to do them. They are boss encounters that, if you're a beginner, it is nice to learn about the game, and there's a lot of different mechanics that are worth learning in order for you to feel some more progress. I would say that's it. I think I covered all of the most important things that are very useful for you in the early stages of the game that allow you to progress and then later on apply those changes, to apply those things that you want to do. Focus more on your build, or maybe focus more on farming something else. Choose what you want to choose, do what you want to do, progress, feel the rush and fun of the snowball effect in this game, then I wish you all the luck. Thank you.